Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining me. This is the lovely podcast, The Endurance of Labor Laws. I am your lovely host, Lesley Sullivan, and today is the 34th episode. That is awesome. And today we're going to take a look at the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees. But first of all, I want to give a shout out to some of my listeners here. So let me go to my list. Here we go. A big shout out to Texas, Oklahoma, Virginia, Pennsylvania, New York. Awesome. You guys are very wonderful. And I want to give a shout out to some of the platforms here. It says Podcast Addict, then Overcast and Stitcher. That is awesome. And some are listening to this on Chrome and Safari, so that is really good. So that's what I love about analytics is it tells me where all people are listening from. And then there was one podcast, people were listening from Alexa and a couple other ones that I didn't know that you could listen from Alexa because I don't have Alexa. But anyway, if that's how you listen to it, that is wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me again. So let's go ahead and get started on this one. So this is the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, and the abbreviation is IATSE. It was formed July 17th, 1893, so quite a while ago. Its type is a labor union. Its headquarters is in New York City of New York in the United States. It has locations in Canada and the United States. It has a little over, or I take that back. As of 2020, it has 150,000 members. The current president is Matthew, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, but it's Loeb, so Loeb. And the secretary-treasurer is James B. Wood. They have affiliations with the AFL-CIO and the Canadian Labour Congress. So let's go ahead and take a look at this puppy here. It says, the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, Motion Picture Technicians, Artists and Allied Crafts of the United States, its territories, and Canada, known as simply the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, IATSE, or IA for short, is a Canadian-American labor union representing over 150,000 technicians, artisans, and craft persons in the entertainment industry, including live theater, motion picture and television production, and trade shows in the United States and Canada. It was awarded the Tony Honors for Excellence in Theater in 1993. And here's a little bit of an overview. It says IATSE was founded in 1893 when representatives of stagehands working in 11 cities met in New York and pledged to support each other's effort to establish fair wages and working conditions for their members. IATSE has since evolved to embrace the development of new entertainment media, craft expansion, technological innovation, and geographic growth. Today, IATSE members work in all forms of live theater, motion picture and television production, trade shows and exhibitions, television broadcasting and concerts, as well as the equipment and construction shops that support all these areas of the entertainment industry. IATSE represents virtually all the behind-the-scenes workers in crafts ranging from motion picture animator to theater usher. During a period when private sector union membership has been in sharp decline, IATSE has continued to grow. Since 1993, IATSE's membership has increased from 74,344 to 150,000, which it attributes to its willingness to adapt its structure to protect traditional jurisdiction and accommodate new crafts. This next section goes a little bit more into detail about the history. So this is going to be from the years, it's going to start from the years 1886 to 1987. In 1886, members of the Theatrical Protective Union of New York went on strike in New York City. After producers filled the positions of strikers with less skilled strikebreakers, actors refused to work due to sets falling apart. With the support of the actors behind the strikers, they succeeded in most of their requests. In 1893, representatives of stagehands from 11 cities met in New York to discuss working conditions for their peers. They vowed to support each other in the effort to create an industry that would allow for fair wages and better working conditions. On June 17, 1893, the representatives officially formed the National Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees. In 1895, quote, Home Rule was established. The alliance defined Home Rule as 22 New York theaters for New York local members, Chicago theaters for Chicago, and so forth, and no other members of locals allowed to work within the jurisdiction of other locals without their consent. The Los Angeles Theatrical Workers Union, which had independently formed in 1891, joined NATSE in 1896. By 1898, the NATSE had welcomed 2 Canadian locals into the alliance, Montreal Local 56 and Toronto Local 58. In 1902, the alliance adopted international into its title. In 1912, the union began a system that allowed individuals traveling with attractions to send basic information such as the size and length of time the local cruise would be needed ahead to the next destination. This assured that there would be enough people to staff each theater and helped ensure these were union crews. The system is still in process today and is referred to as the yellow card system. IATSE was quickly becoming the preeminent theatrical union in North America after the Canadian Department of Labor listed theatrical locals in New Brunswick, Quebec, Ontario, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, but Manitoba, Calgary, I think it's Saskatchewan, and Vancouver in 1928. My apologies for not pronouncing those correctly if those were wrong. In June 1933, President Roosevelt signed legislation into law affecting all U.S. workers, the National Recovery Act, creating the National Recovery Administration, also known as the NRA. The NRA's first mission was to create a uniform system of codes to cover all of industry in the United States. For months, the Alliance participated in hearings to create an industrial code for the entertainment industry. Eventually, 4 different codes were established. Code of Fair Competition for the Motion Picture Industry, Code of Fair Competition for the Legitimate Full-Length Dramatic and Musical Theatrical Industry, Code of Fair Competition for the Burlesque Theatrical Industry, and the Code of Fair Competition for the Motion Picture Laboratory Industry. The NRA shortened working hours to spread the work around and set the first minimum wage level for stagehands. In 1938, the Fair Labor Standards Act was passed, including a provision that required studios to rearrange production schedules to fit the agreed-upon 44-hour work week to be reduced for 40 over the following 3 years. In 1940, the Canadian Picture Pioneers Organization was formed, quote, dedicated to the support and well-being of all members of the motion picture industry in Canada. The next section is entitled Corruption in the Early 20th Century. During the early 20th century, organized crime gained influence over parts of IATSE in collusion with employers. In June 1934, IATSE held an election with only one person running. The election was rigged by the soon-to-be-elected President George Brown. The other 2 opponents in the running suddenly dropped from the race after death threats were received. Billy Bayoff, another Chicago gangster, was instantly elected Brown's personal representative. Later that year, Bayoff went to Hollywood on behalf of IATSE. He used violent threats to discuss a private and limited contract with studios. These contracts included weak contracts and high dues. The studios liked the protection against the union. In 1941, Bayoff and other mobsters were charged with corruption, leading to union members attempting to remove them from power in IATSE. However, the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees remained corrupt and reverted to fraudulent negotiating practices. Some resources suggest that in the later years, IATSE was more interested in breaking strikes than winning them. This next section is 1988 to current. On November 6, 1996, the AICP, Association of Independent Commercial Producers, Inc., and the IATSE signed the first ever agreement between the 2 organizations. The agreement established the wages and working conditions applicable to motion picture and television production technicians and artisans employed in the production of television commercials, and was intended to recognize and address the special needs of the television commercial production process. In 1998, the union's name was lengthened to the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, Moving Picture Technicians, Artists and Allied Crafts of the United States, its territories, and Canada, while maintaining the existing acronym. In the same year, the 5 departments were established: stagecraft, motion picture and television production, organizing, trade show and display work, and Canadian affairs. In 2011, the communications department was established, and in 2012, the organizing department was folded into the stagecraft department, and 2 new departments were established: education and training and broadcast. In 1999, IATSE established the IATSE Political Action Committee, a federal political action committee designed to support candidates for federal office who promote the interests of the members of the IATSE and its locals, and to support a federal legislative and administrative agenda to benefit those members. In 2001, IATSE changed the word employees in their name to employees to reflect modern spelling. Previously, there was only 1 E in that word. Now there are 2. The Labor Education Assistance Program, LEAP, L-E-A-P, was launched in 2009, which would pay tuition for labor studies courses taken by its local union officers. Following LEAP, the IA established the Training Trust to provide training opportunities in the areas of safety and skills development for IATSE members. The next section is about the 2021 strike that was averted. After passing on original July 31st deadline, as well as multiple extensions, negotiations between the IATSE and the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, AMPTP, over the Hollywood Basic Agreement covering the Los Angeles area and the Area Standards Agreement covering the rest of the country broke down in September 2021. The IATSE demands include higher minimum wages, a minimum time period between the end of one day and the start of another, an end to the current classification of streaming as new media with lower minimum wages, and measures to dissuade studios from skipping breaks for meals. Meanwhile, a trend towards production of both shorter seasons and fewer seasons overall has resulted in shorter production schedules and fewer chances for promotions. The hashtag IA Living Wage has gained traction with a public call for a it goes from $25.08 to $25.95 minimum wage. On September 21st, the IATSE announced a nationwide strike authorization vote. Each local needs to reach a vote threshold of 75% yes for approval. The Los Angeles Times noted that in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic and its effects on film and TV production, the unions were in a strong position. And that was spoken from, I guess, Paul Krugman of the New York Times. He said that the seller's market in labor has also emboldened union members who have been much more willing than usual to go on strike. I'm kind of surprised they would go on strike when people are out of work and need jobs. I'm kind of concerned about that, me personally, because in Oklahoma, we've got a slight problem. It's not huge, but we have a problem with people not going back to work. They want to live off of that unemployment check. Well, that greatly causes inflation, and the reason why is because it's the employer that pays the unemployment insurance. So whatever that interest rate is, or percentage I should say is, it has gone up astronomically, at least here in Oklahoma. I don't know how that has affected other states, but our unemployment rate that the employers pay in terms of that insurance, it's doubled and tripled and quadrupled because people have refused to go back to work. And what people may not realize is that even if you are receiving an unemployment check, you still have to pay taxes on that. So you're still taxed because it is still seen as income. So I'm surprised that with so few people wanting to go back to work, I'm surprised a union would go on strike, because I would think that they would have the ability to have way more work and way better wages, because it's a worker's market right now, not an employer market. So I'm kind of confused a little bit by the whole strikes are doing better right now. I don't think that would be a very smart idea, because also it will cripple your economy. It will cripple your country, because here's the thing, with all these other people not working that are not unionized, employers cannot really afford to pay union members what they're going to get paid, especially if it's a dramatic increase. Like, you don't go asking for more money when there's less money in the pool, if that makes sense. Like, you gotta be careful where you dive into, because if there's not enough money in the pool, you're gonna be diving into the shallow end as opposed to the deep end. So they kind of need to be smarter about this. It goes on to say the board of directors of the Editors Guild, IATSE Local 700, quote, voted unanimously to recommend that guild members vote yes in favor of a strike authorization vote. Similarly, the National Executive Board of the International Cinematographers Guild, IATSE Local 600, voted unanimously in favor of authorizing a strike. Nationwide strike authorization votes were held from October 1st to October 3rd. IATSE members voted 98.68% in favor of authorizing a strike, with ballots cast by 89.66% of eligible voters. Afterwards, on October 4th, IATSE President Matthew Loeb said, I hope that the studios will see and understand the resolve of our members. The ball is in their court. The AMPTP said in a statement that it remains committed to reaching an agreement that will keep the industry working. Here's the thing. If people don't want to work, then you're not going to have an industry that's actually working. Your industry is actually going to fail, and also whatever you produce is not going to be the best thing that you can produce because you don't have your cream of the crop workers working, because they are refusing to work. So if these people are refusing to work, especially if they live in California and in LA or San Diego, but particularly LA, I don't know how they can still have a house or have utilities because it's so expensive to live out there. And if they're not bringing in a daily wage, that's a big problem. So I just wonder, are they trying to get unemployment? Because if they were, I personally would deny their check. Because they have the opportunity to work, they're just refusing to do it. I don't get that. That just makes no sense to me. It goes on to say, talks between the AMP, TP, and IATSE resumed on October 5th and continued through October 13th. On October 9th, Loeb informed IATSE members that either a deal or a strike would happen in a matter of days, not weeks. The National Executive Director of the Editors Guild, Kathy Rapola, said on October 12th that the pace of negotiations does not reflect the urgency of the situation. The employers repeatedly refuse to do what it will take to achieve a fair deal. Barring a last-minute deal, the IATSE is set to begin its strike on October 18th. A spokesman for the AMPTP said that with 5 days left to reach a deal, the studios will continue to negotiate in good faith in an effort to reach an agreement for a new contract that will keep the industry working. It says well-known media personalities in support of the IATSE include, a lot of these people I don't recognize their names, but I'll go ahead and mention them. Jamie Alexander, Stephanie Patrice, Chloe Bennett, C. Robert Cargill, Ever Carradine, Matthew Cherry, I think it's Ollie or Alili, Cravahole, Ava DuVernay, Frances Fisher, Jane Fonda, Courtney Ford, Karen Gillian, Lucy Hale, Jeremy O. Harris, Ron Howard, Joshua Jackson, I think it's Jamil, Barry Jenkins, Mindy Kaling, Elisa Milano, Mandy Moore, Cynthia Nixon, Christopher Nolan, Rosie O'Donnell. I miss her. I wish she would have her own show again, but not be so mean to people. But she is actually really funny, Rosie O'Donnell. I miss seeing her on TV. She can be a hoot. The next one is Edward James, I think it's Olmus, Anna Paquin, Sarah Paulson, Francia Reza, Anthony Rapp, Ryan Reynolds, Seth Rogen, Susan Sarandon, Octavia Spencer, Steven Spielberg, Ben Stiller, Lily Tomlin, Kerry Washington, Bradley Whitford, Mae Whitman, Jeffrey Wright, and Rachel Zegler. or Ziegler, I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name, my apologies, as well as current and former SAG, AFTRA leaders, including Fran Drescher, Rebecca Damon, Gabrielle Carteris, and Jolie Fisher. WGA East said in a statement that we work side by side with IATSE's members and we stand shoulder to shoulder with them in their contract fight. After the strike authorization vote, the National Board of Directors of the Directors Guild of America said it stands in solidarity with our IATSE brothers, sisters, and kin. We urge the producers and studios of the AMPTP to return to the bargaining table and make a fair deal addressing critical issues. Cinematographer Helena Hutchins supported the IATSE and planned to strike over dangerous working conditions days before her death in the 2021 Rust shooting accident. I looked that up. That was really sad. She was accidentally shot by a gun on set that had live ammunition in it. That is unbelievably stupid. Who brings live ammunition to a studio? When none of it is supposed to be live ammunition, to me, that's unacceptable. And I am a Republican capitalist saying this, and I'm not even a huge fan of labor unions, but that chick did not deserve to die. I mean, that totally could have been avoided if proper due diligence had taken place on that set. As far as I know, they are still investigating it. So it goes on to say, Philippa Childs, head of the British Entertainment Union section, BECTU, said the group was fully behind the strike and urged members in the event of a strike not to replace any striking IATSE members in the UK. In Australia, the MEAA said that the unity and determination to achieve change shown by IATSE members sets a benchmark for all of us. You know, I don't really hear much from Australia and their actors, so I'm not really sure how much say they have in things. Because the entertainment industry is really more American-based. We're really number one in terms of that. Our main competition, I would say, would be Britain, especially with the shows that we see on PBS, OETA, because Americans, we love the period pieces of the British people. They're so wonderfully done. They're excellently done. You know, that's really that's really only our competition there. The one and only, really. Other than that, we're pretty much top dogs and we're really good at what we do in America. It goes on to say congressional Democrats comprising 31 senators and 87 representatives wrote to AMPTP President Carol Lombardini, I think that's how you pronounce her name, my apologies for mispronouncing it, on September 30th to express support for the principles of adequate sleep, meal breaks, and living wages for all workers. Following the strike authorization, Democratic Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez called the result an incredible accomplishment and exactly the kind of mass movement organizing we need right now. She doesn't really know what she's talking about. She used to be a waitress. Like, the only reason why she got elected was because she was chosen for being extremely ignorant, and she was very pliable and very malleable, I guess you could put it, in terms of her brain. And she can be easily controlled and manipulated by other people because she's really just a puppet. I mean, is she a citizen of the United States? Yes. But she's really not that bright. I'm not impressed with her. If I was, I would let you know, but at this point, I'm not. And the fact that she's all for mass movements, that tells me right there that she's a crazy liberal nutbag because she has caused a lot of problems with I was going to say her mouth, but she has every right to speak by all means because we have freedom of speech. It's just I get concerned with people like her because she's incredibly ignorant about the Constitution of the United States. She doesn't understand states' rights. She also doesn't understand the rights of individual citizens because, yes, we are a country, but we are also individual citizens as well. So she lacks a lot of common knowledge and she lacks a lot of common sense. But unfortunately, money can buy power, and unfortunately, whoever is backing her with the millions of dollars and helped to get her into office, unfortunately, whoever was backing her has a lot of power and has a lot of money, so they can put whoever they want in there as a puppet. So that's just kind of how that is. Goes on to say, Senator Raphael Warnock, a Democrat of Georgia, tweeted that IATSE workers are integral to Georgia's economy and I support their fight to push for fair wages and benefits which they deserve. You know, IATSE, from what I understand, their main group is in California because that's where the motion picture industry is. Georgia isn't really relevant. Do they have locals out there? I'm sure they do, but I just kind of feel like this guy's trying to grandstand and make it seem like he's kind of like, oh, I'm involved in it too, hear my voice kind of thing, but yet he's really a nobody in terms of IATSE. I mean, yes, he is a senator, but other than that, he's not really involved in this industry whatsoever. So I kind of don't really care much whenever someone starts saying, oh, I agree with this or I disagree with this, but yet they're not involved in the actual organization and they don't even live out there. They don't even understand the industry. Georgia is completely different than California, and it's just two totally different economies. So it really doesn't make sense that he would say that IATSE workers are integral to Georgia's economy when they really have nothing to do with each other. I think this is just a Democrat grandstanding as they usually do, and I'm not impressed with that at all. If it was relevant, I would let you know, but this, not relevant at all. So moving on. A strike would have affected productions everywhere in the United States as Local 600, 700, and 800, representing camera crews, editors, and art directors, respectively, are national organizations. However, not all production work would be affected by a strike. IATSE has a separate pay TV agreement in place with various production companies including BET, Cinemax, HBO, Showtime, and Starz. Similar agreements exist for other types of productions including music videos, sports productions, one-off single productions, low-budget theatrical productions, animated works, and AICP-produced commercials. I want to take a little bit of a tangent here and talk about BET. I think that's the Black Entertainment Television Station. I've come across that before, and they have some of the most disgusting, degrading shows I have ever seen, and I can't believe that anyone would actually watch that. I thought it was very degrading to African Americans. I thought it was very degrading to African American women. I don't think it's a very positive influence on our culture, our society in the United States. I don't think it helps African American families. I think it idolizes rappers and it kind of treats women like they're hoes. That's what I saw on these shows, these different shows. There was one production I saw. It was a reality show. I can't remember the name of it. But there was this girl, she was dating, I guess a basketball player. I'm trying to remember what it was. Well, they made it seem like it was a reality show. That's the thing. So who knows? It may not have been a reality show now that I think about it, but they try and make it seem like all this stuff is real and normal behavior when it's not. But anyway, the show was, there is this girl, and she's dating this guy who's, I guess he tried out for a basketball team and he made it, but he got her pregnant. And so, he was like, I don't want the baby. I'm going to be a basketball player. I'm going to be very successful. So he changed his mind and was going to marry her, but she went ahead and got aborted. And then there was this other show. This one actually was a reality TV show. And there was this woman, she's married to this guy. I can't remember his name. He must be popular or some type of celebrity that I don't even know about or care about. But she wanted to show him that she was pregnant. They're married. And so she took an EPT test and she took that stick thing, which is so gross. Like you pee on that thing. You have urine on it. Like talk about germs. So she took this EP test to him and he was playing basketball with his friends and she showed it to him. And his reaction was so weird. And just the fact that she thought that was a normal way to tell your husband that you're pregnant, like to actually take that germ-infested EPT used test strip thing to your husband and show it to him at a basketball game that he's playing with his friends. I just thought, how sick. But the way that they did it, though, they glamorized it. Like they made it seem like this is the normal way to let your significant other know that you're pregnant when it's not. Like, I'm not against EPT tests or anything, but you do that, first of all, you do that in the home, but number two, you keep all that in your house. Like, I just thought that was so gross that she's walking around with that. I mean, talk about gross germs, like, I was just like, how could any woman walk around with that thing when you're supposed to wash your hands after using the bathroom? Like, I was just flabbergasted. I was like, this television station, this show is so wrong for young women to watch. That is not the normal way to let your significant other know that you're pregnant. It's just so weird the way our society tries to have, try and outdo each other in terms of letting their partner know that they're going to have a baby or something. Like, whatever happened to being classy about it and having it be private and not have it on TV and just be a normal family? A lot of these so-called reality shows, it's not reality. It's not real. It's not how normal people behave. It's just so extreme. And what sucks is that, initially whenever reality TV shows first came out, it was generally known that that's not how you behave. But now reality TV is so common that the young people, especially minors, people under the age of 18, they are being influenced by this stuff, and in a very negative way. And then what sucks is that when they become adults at the age of 18, they go to college, they say and do some of the weirdest things we have ever seen in our society. And it's not just the normal college kid stuff. And then these kids are growing up to be some of the weirdest adults. And it's just, I feel so sorry for them in a way, because it just feels like their childhood has been stolen from them. It's like kids can't be kids anymore. They're being exposed to all this grotesque adult material that they should never be exposed to. Because a child is a child. I mean, I just don't understand how these shows can be on TV and it be okay when it's, how do I word this? Like, there's certain rules, laws, and regulations regarding minors. And it's serious. You have state and federal on those two levels. And then, but it's like the entertainment industry, they get away with so much with manipulating people's kids. And what I don't understand is when parents don't guard and protect their children from gross shows like what I saw on the BET channel. And they may have other nice shows. I didn't see any. And believe me, I've watched this channel several times. Every single time I had to turn it off because it was so grotesque. It was so gross. It was so degrading. It was so degrading to women, children, and families. And I'm just like, this is a problem in African American families. Well, a lot of them aren't even families. They just shack up and they have all these babies, and it's just like, the reason why they've got so many problems is because they're living outside the norms of having a normal family life. Well, if you don't have a normal family life, guess what? You're not going to have a normal family, or at least it's going to be very difficult to have that. And I just kind of go, there's nothing wrong with having a normal, calm lifestyle, but it seems like these shows, the way they sell their ratings, or the way they sell their show, they make their ratings, is they just make things so weird, grotesque, abnormal, sexually driven all the time, and then they wonder why our society has some of the problems it has now that it didn't have a decade ago, that it didn't have 2 decades ago, that it didn't have 5 decades ago. I mean, it's just like, you have to be careful about what you promote and what you stand by. Because whatever you promote and stand by is a reflection of you and your character and your choices and what you believe in. And I kid you not, there was one woman I lived next door to. She was a hoot. She was so funny. She's African American. She's a really good worker. She had a really high-paying job, and I was surprised because of her mouth. I mean, she could be really vulgar and really horrible. I was like, man, I hope she doesn't talk like this at her employer, because she could easily be fired. But anyway, she always had BET on. And I thought, this is where this mouth is coming from. Just her perception, and her dating life was so weird. I mean, and she just had these really bizarre, abnormal opinions about things. I mean, we never really got to be friends, and I think it was because of her lifestyle. I really do, because it was one of those things, like, she could be funny and kind at times, but at other times she could be really mean and hateful and weird, and she was just repeating the things that she was seeing on BET, And it was embarrassing to be out with her in public because she would just overreact to stuff and over dramatize things. And I'm just like, this is not a TV show. This is everyday life. And in everyday life, you should be striving for peace. You should be striving for calmness in your life because hardships can and will happen. But if your life is already crazy because you choose for it to be crazy, then your hardships are going to be very difficult to handle if you can handle them at all. That's why it's important to not load your mind up with things like from BET or even some from HBO. HBO kind of is known for being raunchy at times, but at this point, I'd rather watch HBO than BET. That's how bad it is. So just FYI, that's my 2 cents worth, but this is literally from what I have experienced in my life, and I'm very disappointed at BET because of all the things that they could provide people to watch. It's ghetto, gangster, trashy, hoochie mama, baby mama, EPT, nasty, nappy, pregnancy, urine-infested test. It's just like craziness. They've got these jeweled, not even jeweled, but they're like gold grills on their teeth. I'm like, that's a dentist nightmare right there. And that is ruining your teeth. Like your teeth are bone. So why would you put metal on top of your teeth like that? Like you're ruining your mouth. And plus they're investing all this money in what they call a grill that they put in their mouth. I'm like, do you know what a grill is? It's what's on the front of your car. Like, why would you decorate your mouth, your body, with something that has the same name as what's on your vehicle and get splattered with bugs while you're driving down the highway? To me, that is so degrading to even think that way. To do that to your body and also to waste that much money on that because those grills that go in your mouth are very expensive. And I'm like, you know what? That money can go towards your kids' college education. That money can go towards your health insurance. That money can go towards your medications. That money can go towards, your car if it's not already pimped out with like really weird rims and things like that. And don't get me wrong, I love rims. There are some really neat ones out there, but there are some really ghetto trashy ones out there. It's like, my goodness, like you see some of these cars that are all jacked up and really just over-decorated with things. I don't know how else to describe it, but it's just like, it's like, so they invest all their money into their ghetto car and make it look all pimped out and everything, but yet they live in a trashy hellhole rent house in a drug-infested area. Like, that's not wise money management. In fact, it's pathetic and it's terrible. And then I just wonder, are their kids eating? Are their kids on food stamps? Are they on welfare? Because I see a lot of these ghetto, pimped out cars in the ghetto. So I'm just like, they must be putting those welfare checks somewhere. If they're on welfare and if they have a job, why are they putting all that money into a car, of all things? Like, it just takes me aback because I think that if you're going to invest in something, you need to invest in yourself and in your future. Not in some fad car. Because it doesn't stand the test of time. And there are more important things than a pimped out car. If you're living in the ghetto, what's more important is getting your family to a safe neighborhood. That's more important than fancy rims. I mean, I know I'm probably going to get a letter or an email about this that I'm talking about because people always get irritated when you talk about BET or African Americans or things like that because I'm white, but it doesn't matter. You have to call a spade a spade. If I see there are problems within a certain community and they have to be in their a certain race and it just continues on, then you have to call it like you see it. I mean, it would be like if there was, a bad television station that was only geared towards whites and if it only had really bad white stuff on there, but I can't really think of anything because we don't act like that. But it's one of those things that if I came across, I just saw something, pornography. I take that back. Let me correct myself. Pornography. I'm very disappointed in our society in that anyone would ever participate in pornography, especially women. I think a lot of them get sucked into it, into the sex trafficking trade as minors, and then they get converted over into adult porn stars. That's what I think happens with that. But, it's still wrong. Even though they're adults, and as adults they're choosing to do that, it's still wrong. It's degrading to women. It's also degrading to men. Like some of the pornography, well, actually all pornography is bad, but I don't think we realize that, regardless of whether you're male or female, if you're just continuously having sex with different people, that is very degrading to your soul and to your conscience. Because at the end of the day, you have to live with yourself and what you did, whether you got paid for it or not. And that just breaks my heart, how much money is made in the pornography business, and it's really just selling human flesh. It's wrong, and it's degrading. And, it's one of those things, I look back in history and I think, we kind of make fun of, or we think, how could things be so bad in Pompeii? Like, they really degraded people, and they had legalized prostitution there, and it was really bad. Their prostitution was really, really bad. And, I just find it odd when we start critiquing different civilizations in time, in history, and how they treat women, and how if there's prostitution or if there's slavery, but yet look at the sex trade trafficking that we have, even in the United States and Europe. And then look at the pornography industry. Like how can we say, oh, this civilization, this society was so wrong, they were so terrible, look what they did 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, whatever. But yet look at what we're doing to our own people and our own society. If something was immoral and degrading to human life back then, it's immoral and degrading now, is my point. It doesn't matter what color we are. It doesn't matter what our social status is. It doesn't matter what political party we're in. It doesn't matter how much we make or what we don't make. It just doesn't matter because, being a good moral person should be basic. It shouldn't be difficult. It should be basic to your society. Because if you want a normal functioning society, you have to have normal functioning people. You're always going to have a few dysfunctional people, but now we're having a really large amount of dysfunctional people. And unfortunately, someone is always willing to make a buck off of that. So now a lot of this abnormal, dysfunctional behavior, especially sexual perversiveness, it's now its own entertainment industry. And if someone can make money off of it, they basically legalize it and they don't care who they hurt or who they harm. So, if we're going to call a spade over here, we've got to call a spade everywhere else, because we have to be honest about stuff. We have to say it like it is, because if we don't say it like it is, then all we're doing is enabling a really bad, unethical, immoral, disgusting, grotesque problem within our society. And it breaks my heart whenever I see such things and hear about them. It really does bother me, because I just think we are better than this. Look how far we have come in our civilizations, with science, modern medicine, innovations, inventions, and things like that, and yet we still have some of these problems, and unfortunately we have allowed ourselves to think that they are socially acceptable behavior when they are not. I don't know why, but it seems like out in Hollywood and under the entertainment umbrella, it's like if one person finds it pleasing or entertaining, then it's okay to do it, even if it's grotesque, immoral, degrading, and just barely legal. And if it's not legal, then they make it legal. We are better than that. We are better than that. And I expect better behavior from people, especially out in Hollywood, because I look at it this way. If there are people in the entertainment industry and they claim to have all this power and be a part of these unions, or maybe they're trying to tell us how to vote or tell us to get vaccinated, I think they need to clean up their industry first before they start telling the rest of the country what to do. Because there are so many problems out in Hollywood. I can think of so many scandals off the top of my head that they have refused to address. One of them was the Me Too movement. And I'm not even going to go into the specifics of that because it's grotesque to me, it's sick, but there are certain behaviors that have been going on in Hollywood, in that industry for a long time, but yet they're trying to preach to us how to live our lives, even in Oklahoma, in the Bible Belt. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, it doesn't fool me. It doesn't persuade me, and it doesn't fool me. It's just like, if someone's going to have an argument, have a better one. Have a better one. I just think it's so interesting that Hollywood, and don't get me wrong, there are some great Hollywood actors and actresses out there. There are some of really good, noble character, but they are few and far between. There used to be more. There used to be way more. But unfortunately, it's just a little different out there right now. But I just look at it this way. If someone's going to be a part of that kind of culture out there, because it seems like they have their own continent out there, their own society, I really don't want to be lectured by someone who doesn't reflect, well, basically the goodness of Christ, because I'm a Christian, but also doesn't even reflect the basic goodness of mankind, even if you're not religious. Even if you're not a believer in Christ Jesus, at least reflect the goodness and kindness of mankind, because if you care about somebody else, then you're not going to do some of the things that Hollywood is doing, and some of the things that the pornography industry is doing, and that BET is doing. And here's another thing. A lot of these industries are run by baby boomers. Isn't that interesting? Like, these are people that, and I'm not against the baby boomer generation, but I really thought about this. Here's the thing. A lot of the wealth in this country is in the hands of baby boomers, in their companies and in their foundations. Also, the people that have most of the money out in Hollywood are baby boomers. Now, the reason why I mention this is that baby boomers, that's the generation that got Roe v. Wade passed, meaning legalized abortion, right? On a federal level, not a state level, but a federal level. Here's why I bring this up, and this is a side note. So basically, it's the baby boomer generation that got to party it up, have as much sex as they want, do as many drugs as they want, and then they legalized abortion, and then all of a sudden, when they want to start families, oh, we're conservative now, or we might be Republicans, or maybe, we're just a conservative Democrat, and so now it's mostly the baby boomer generation that's trying to reverse Roe v. Wade. They're trying to reverse that. And they're trying to make it so that medical marijuana is not legal. They're trying to make it very difficult to get medical marijuana, which medical marijuana helps a lot of people. And there are some people that have chronic illnesses that medical marijuana is the only thing that helps them. It's like, why would you take that away from somebody? How cruel is that? So I just think it's interesting that you've got this one generation that has a lot of control over our country. A lot of control. They have the most land, the most money, and the most power. And yet they are controlling some of our major industries. That always gets my attention because, here in the Bible Belt, sometimes I get really sick and tired of someone that's older than me lecturing me about what we should or should not do when either A, I know they haven't been living the right life, or B, I know just based on what they've told me about their young adulthood, all the stuff that they did, and it's like, don't lecture me about my life and what I'm supposed to do when it's your generation that got Roe v. Wade passed. And then now they're trying to take it back. I just think it's hypocritical. Because what you have to remember is that a lot of baby boomers were Democrats. A lot of them. Because a lot of them were, when they were young, when they were in their 20s, they totally fell hook, line, and sinker for Jimmy Carter. A lot of them. A lot of them. I don't know why. But they fell for his spiel and his agenda, and guess what? He was one of the worst presidents of the United States, hands down. He crippled our economy. We had fuel shortages, gas shortages in the United States. Like, there were actually gas stations that ran out of fuel almost on a daily basis, and so you had to wait in line to get fuel for your car so you could get to work. And if they ran out of fuel, guess what? You weren't going to work in your car. You'd have to walk or ride a bike. Like, like basically we had a little bit of the dark ages a little bit in terms of what we're used to in the United States. So now we've got a lot of these baby boomers that are now, they're older, and they realize, oh, we should probably be more Republican now. Because we're actually not for high taxes. We're not for abortion. We actually do believe in protecting the United States. We do believe in a strong military. And I just find it very interesting that you have to be careful who you align yourself with, because you have to realize who is actually in power and who calls the shots. That's why I always question it whenever someone from Hollywood is trying to tell me what to do with their propaganda. And I'm just like, you know what, why don't you come live in Oklahoma and meet some of our people first before you start telling us what to do? Because we don't live in sunny, beautiful California where there's palm trees everywhere. I mean, I would love to live there. I think it'd be great. But, you know, I don't take advice just from anyone. Because to me, proof is in the pudding. And I always look at who's actually behind it. Who's actually behind, you know, this agenda or this propaganda? And where is the money coming from? That's what I ask. Who is it that's actually in charge? And who is it that they're saying is in charge? Who's their puppet? Like AOC or whatever her name is? Like, she's just a puppet. It's sad because she's a young woman, and I'm just kind of like, well, it's unfortunate she's being manipulated, but it is what it is. But my point is this. Whenever you have really bizarre shows on TV, things that you don't agree with, things that disturb you, look at who is directing it. Like, look at all the credits. That's where you're going to find out the most information, really. You don't even have to watch all the show. Just wait for the credits or look it up. You need to look up who the director is, who the producer is, the executive producer, the associate producer, the assistant director. Who else would be involved in that? The headshots, the big cheeses, as they say. I'm trying to think. Well, I guess you could look up who the main actors and actresses are, because sometimes they have a say in things, and sometimes the people that are the highest paid actors, sometimes they are the executive producers. So you need to look at, whenever you come across a show or a television show or a movie that you don't like, what you'll realize is that if you kind of keep track in your mind, just make a mental note of who is producing and who's directing these films. Oh, and who's writing them. That's the other thing. Who's writing them and who's editing them? The script people. What you'll realize is that the shows that you don't like, those themes, whether grotesque or vulgar or degrading to women, you're going to find that it's the same people that are directing them, producing them, and writing them. And also sometimes acting in them, but especially directing, producing, and writing them. And you'll realize how much power and control they have in Hollywood. And how they manipulate people, especially women and children. It's always the women and children that suffer the most whenever there's a power struggle. That's just how it is. I'm not pulling the girl card. I'm not pulling the feminist card. That's just a fact. That's just how it is. And if it wasn't like that, I'd tell you straight up, because if you've been listening to these podcasts long enough, you will know that I'm very blunt and I just say it like it is. And I don't edit these. I'm just talking straight to you. I don't go back and delete anything. Like, if I don't like a podcast, it's usually at the beginning. Like, if I don't like how I worded something, I just delete the whole podcast, and it's usually like only 5 minutes, and then I restart and I just go from start to finish. I don't edit any of this, none of it. It's straight from the heart, straight from the soul, and also from my common sense and the knowledge that I have. And if I don't know something, I literally say, my listeners, I don't know what this is. I'm not knowledgeable on this, or I don't know how to pronounce this, but this is what it is. But when I do know something, I think you can tell by the tone of my voice when I'm very passionate about it, and I'm very serious about it, because I believe in the value of human life and of people's hopes and dreams. And that's not just a fluffy thing to say, it's a real thing to say, because if people do not have hope, then they will not fulfill their hopes and their dreams, and they will not believe that they have a destiny to accomplish something great in their lifetime. And to take that away from anyone in any way is a crime. It may not be state or federal, but to me, that's a crime against humanity to do that to somebody. And so whenever you have directors, producers, actors, or even people that are writing the script, whenever they are continuing to put out just grotesque, nasty, degrading, vulgar, horrible things out on media, any kind of media platform, whenever they continuously do that, that is their agenda, and it is a horrible agenda. And you know what we should all do? Turn off the TV. Because here's the thing, I've learned that writing a letter of complaint doesn't really do very much unless you have a bunch of initials behind your name, or unless you own a foundation. So I've learned, number one, I lift it up in prayer, and I find something better to watch. Or I actually turn off the TV and I go outside and I go hiking, I go biking, I go walking, I go be a part of society. I go be a part of something that I actually want to be a part of. Because see, here's the thing, the more garbage you watch and allow to plant seeds in your mind, the more you're making that your society as opposed to your real society that you are a part of, that you are supposed to be kind of commanding. I don't know how else to describe it, but if you're wasting your time on garbage, then you're not living your best. And living your best is getting to know people, talking to other people, talking to your fellow Americans, talking to your fellow citizens, talking to the stranger, talking to a visitor. Maybe even getting to know undocumented workers and figure out, hey, why are they here? Did they leave some hostage situation? Are they starving? Do they need water? Do they need food, water, shelter? What do they need? Do they need a lawyer? That's what I mean by commanding. I don't mean that you go out there and act like a commander. I just mean that you take ownership of your life. Because if all you're watching is garbage, then you're not taking ownership of your life, and you're allowing these bad people in Hollywood that don't really value human life, you're allowing them to suck you dry of your life and your ambition, and you will not fulfill your destiny as long as you are letting garbage into your life. Because you know where garbage goes? It goes in the garbage can, and then the city comes and picks it up and they put it in the landfill, because that's where it belongs. It doesn't belong in our house. It doesn't belong in our brain. It doesn't belong in our mind, our heart, our soul, nowhere. And I say this because I had to draw a line in the sand on what do I think is appropriate to watch. Because I used to just watch almost anything or everything. It didn't matter if it was rated G, R, X, whatever. I mean, except for pornography. I never got into that because it was too much for me. I couldn't do it. Could not watch it. It just was too repulsive to me. But then I thought, maybe I need to be more diligent about what I'm allowing into my mind. Because there's some things I don't ever want to remember again. It's like a bad memory. Well, that's what watching garbage is. It becomes a memory. Like your brain, I don't know if you realize this, and this is another side note, but your brain is beautiful. The human brain is more powerful than any computer on the face of this earth. And one of the amazing things that we have in our brain is the ability to memorize almost anything and everything. And it is categorized in our brain, in our memory, and it's almost like put in a file. That's the best way I can describe it. And then a sight, a sound, a smell, something, a word will trigger that memory, and your brain knows where that memory is. It pulls it immediately, and it's just a little snapshot. Well, do you want a flashback of all the garbage that you've watched on TV and online, or would you rather have something positive come to mind? See, because everything we watch, read, listen to, whatever we write down, those are seeds that are planted into our mind. And whatever we meditate on is what we become. So I say focus on the good. That doesn't mean that your head is in the sky and you're just on cloud 9 all the time, or whatever that number is that they talk about, and that it's just all puppies and kittens all the time. We know life's not like that. What I'm talking about is more or less guarding and protecting your heart and your mind from bad things that we're not supposed to watch, see, or participate in. Because we have better things to do with our lives. And also, I don't want to waste my time on someone else's garbage that they claim is their best work, when it's not. Because to me, garbage is garbage. I'm not going to glorify something that is degrading to women or children. or even men, because I think pornography is also degrading to men. But it's just one of those things that you have to really guard your heart, your mind, and your soul with things like this. Because, when you guard your heart, your mind, and your soul, that's the best first step in taking accountability and taking responsibility for your life. And when you do that, you will have that feeling, a sense of accomplishment, because you are accomplishing something. What you are accomplishing is that you care. You're not flippant, you're not flaky, you care. Because I've learned that when people really care about themselves, they really care about other people. It's not arrogance, it's not pride. I'm not talking about getting your nails done or your hair, the most expensive weave or wig or whatever. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying that when you care about yourself as an individual, the stuff on the inside, the stuff that's not tangible, like your heart, your soul, your spirit, what makes you you? When you care about those characteristics and attributes about yourself, then you will see the best in other people. But if you're not seeing the best in yourself and you're not doing what you can to have a good life, it's going to make it very difficult to see the best in others, and it will make it extremely difficult, if not impossible, to help other people, which is in fact what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to help each other. Not through social welfare, not through the government. It's supposed to be our personal decision on an individual level to help somebody. Even if we think we can't help somebody, and I've been there. There have been times I've been so broke, it just infuriates me to be broke. But when I was broke, that's when I volunteered more. Because even though I didn't have money to give, I gave of my time. I gave my talent. I didn't have treasure to give. But sometimes it's the intangible treasures that are worth way more than currency. Because when someone gives of their intangible treasures, it really means they care. And I'm not dissing rich people that give money. That's great. You do your thing. That's great. But for those of us that do not have millions or billions of dollars, sometimes the only thing we can do is to give of our time, our energy, our effort, and sometimes help someone else be successful even without anything in return. Sometimes that is the best way to help your society, is my point. As opposed to embracing yourself in garbage, embrace yourself, I was going to say, in the goodness of God, because that's where I get all this from. That's where I get my hope. Because God puts in my heart dreams and talents that I would have never thought on my own. But I know that God calls me to a greater destiny. If you're not a Christian, that is okay for you to be listening to this. I don't mind at all, and I'm not trying to push you away. But all I can do is just be myself. And part of my life is being a good Christian woman. And one that practices her faith and be genuine. Because if I'm not genuine, and if I don't speak up about stuff like this, then that I'm not being who I claim to be. And I'm not a fake and I'm not a failure. I refuse to be either of those. So that's why I typically don't hold back whenever I'm talking about myself or my faith. And I always kind of give a little side note or a little heads up. Hey, I'm not trying to push you away if you're not Christian. That's not what this is. Not at all. If anything, my faith has saved me from so many horrible situations. And it was my faith that saved me when I was broke. It was my faith that saved me when I was really ill multiple times, almost died. Like I have survived pleurisy twice. And you talk about excruciating pain and not being able to breathe. I don't know how else to describe it, but it is really terrifying to not be able to breathe and then you are in excruciating pain. It's a whole different level of misery, but I know that Jesus got me through it. So if you don't believe in Jesus, that is your choice. But I will say this, sometimes you have to hit rock bottom before you look for Jesus. I pray that doesn't happen to you. But, it's everybody's life is on them. They have a right to choose what they choose. But my point is this. Regardless of what faith we practice or what faith we don't practice, we have a responsibility as adults to put our best foot forward so that way we can train the younger generations on how to be good, kind people and be good, kind adults. Because right now, we're semi-failing as a culture and as a society. Because we're allowing garbage and muck to be on TV, in television, on motion pictures, online, on Netflix, all this stuff. And, that pendulum eventually swings back and will slap you in the face. I pray it doesn't happen, but that's how pendulums work. So just be mindful of that. That's really all I can say about that. Side note, but that's just what that is. But anyway, it goes on to say, Broadway shows would also not be affected, and neither would post-production work for certain companies including Skywalker Sound, Tyler Perry Studios. He has a really good book. I think it's called Higher Calling. Something. I'll have to look it up, but he has a really good book, and he was on Joel Osteen's show. Really good. And then Vice Media. It says the strike was temporarily averted on October 16th when a tentative agreement was reached between AMPTP and IATSE. The new 3-year Hollywood Basic Agreement included 10-hour turnaround time between shifts, 54 and 32-hour weekend turnaround times, and 3% wage increases for each of the next 3 years. The deal also includes a living wage for the lowest paid workers, improved wages and working conditions for streaming productions, and increased meal penalties. I don't know what a meal penalty is. I'm guessing that's when they don't get to take a break. Negotiations continue for the Area Standards Agreement, and both contracts must be ratified by the union membership. On October 17th, it was reported that many IATSE members would vote against the proposed agreement as it did not address their work conditions adequately. The 3-year contract was ratified by IATSE members on November 15th, 2021, ending all prospects of a strike. A reported 72% of the 63,000 eligible members cast ballots. The vote was close, with a 256 to 188 delegate tally supporting the basic agreement and a 103 to 94 delegate tally in support for the Area Standards Agreement. However, more members actually voted against the deal, with 50.4% of the voters against the basic agreement and 49.96% voting yes. For the Area Standards Agreement, 52% of members voted yes and 48% voted no. The next section is about membership. It says the membership process of the IATSE varies widely depending on each local. In order to become a member, interested applicants must contact the appropriate local union in their jurisdiction that covers their particular craft. Once accepted, members work under union contracts that guarantee certain wages, hours, benefits, safety guidelines, and other agreements, and gain opportunities to upgrade skills and master new technologies relating to their craft. Additionally, IATSE members enjoy benefits from Union Plus, a program created by the AFL-CIO to provide savings and discounts to union members. Almost kind of reminds me of like AAA, when they provide discounts to their members. The next section is organization and structure. It says within the U.S. and Canada, there are more than 375 IATSE local unions among 13 geographical districts, whose members make up the rank and file of the IATSE. The IATSE local unions are organized to represent workers by geographic and craft jurisdiction. Each craft falls under one of 4 departments: stagecraft, motion picture and TV, broadcast, and trade show. The Canadian Department and Communications Department are 2 additional departments within the IA. The IATSE International Union supports all individual local unions and members in numerous ways, including: Number 1, coordinating the negotiation of nationwide agreements within the U.S. and Canada. Number 2, planning for the future by setting policies to improve the effectiveness of the locals and the international. Number 3, providing support for local unions and members as needed, including everything from craft training and leadership education to local administration, organizing, and collective bargaining assistance. The International's General Executive Board is led by the International President. It consists of the General Secretary-Treasurer and 13 International Vice Presidents. Of the Vice Presidents, 2 are designated to come from Canadian locals, 1 is designated to come from the West Coast Studio Production locals, another, the Special Department locals, and the remainder are undesignated. 3 international trustees review the financial activities of the IATSE through semi-annual audits of the International's books and records. That's good. This is the only one I've ever heard of that talks about having an audit. That is excellent. To me, that gives them more validity. Also, on the board is the Canadian Labour Congress delegate, who serves as a liaison between the IA and the CLC, Canada's umbrella organization for dozens of Canadian and international unions. And hold that thought, I need to get a drink of water, so hold one moment. Okay, here we go. So it says the Canadian Department oversees all IATSE Canadian affairs and supports the 16,000 Canadian members and 40 locals, through negotiations, training, and organizing. The Canadian Department works with stage locals to organize more theaters, venues, and shows. Also involved in motion picture and trade show, the Canadian Department works closely with all other IATSE departments on international agreements with employers and providing education and training opportunities tailored for Canadian members. The department also provides support for Canadian members and locals, coordinates efforts on national initiatives with regards to benefits, legislation, political activism, lobbying, and more. That concerns me in regards to legislation, political activism, and lobbying, because I don't think that's really appropriate. I think they need to stay out of politics, my personal opinion, because I think politics needs to stay as the responsibility of the citizens of that particular country. So hold on just a moment. I need another drink of water. Okay, next up we're going to talk about the districts real quick. So District 1 includes Alaska, Montana, Idaho, Oregon, and Washington. The second district is Arizona, California, Hawaii, and Nevada. District number 3 includes Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Vermont, and Connecticut. District number 4 includes Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, and the District of Columbia. District 5 includes Wyoming, Colorado, Utah, and New Mexico. District number 6 includes Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. District number 7 includes Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Mississippi, and Louisiana. District number 8 includes Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky. District number 9 includes Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, Missouri, Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, and Kansas. District number 10 includes New York and New Jersey. District 14 includes Florida, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. And these other 2 districts are 11 and 12. They are in Canada. So some of these I can't pronounce very well, so here we go. District 11 includes Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia. Love you, Nova Scotia. I've been to see you. Oh, and then Prince Edward Island. I love you. I've been there as well. That's where Anne of Green Gables was filmed. It's so beautiful. And then also included in District 11 in Canada is Newfoundland and Labrador. I guess that's what that word is. Okay. Reminds me of a dog. Okay. District 12 is Manitoba. Oh, goodness. I can't always pronounce this. Saskatchewan, I think. Alberta, and then British Columbia. And then it talks about local unions. So it says each local functions autonomously, maintaining their own constitution and bylaws. That's good, because that tells me they care about the individuals. And it says here, maintaining their own constitution and bylaws, elections, dues structure, membership meetings, and more. Locals negotiate labor contracts regarding wages, work rules, and grievance procedures. They also provide services for their members by administering health and retirement funds. That's good. And providing training and education. I like that as well. The IATSE local unions work for the interest of their membership while also representing the overarching goals of the IATSE International. I hope that doesn't mean that their monies all go to that, because I think they should remain local. So the first one we're going to talk about is stagecraft. It says stagecraft members work in venues that include Broadway theaters, opera houses, dance centers, regional theaters, seasonal outdoor amphitheaters, arenas, concert halls, parks, television awards venues, and stadiums. Additionally, the front of house workers, press agents, house managers, and other employees working in the business side of the venue, not the creative technical side, may also be represented by IATSE. However, this is not a set rule, and the employees covered by IATSE depends on the agreement made between IATSE and the venue. The next section is motion picture and TV. Members of the IATSE Motion Picture Division help create all elements of movies and television. Motion picture and TV members build the sets, design the clothing, frame the image, record the dialogue, edit the scenes, and animate the characters to help bring a story to life. The IATSE also covers transportation in Canada, excluding two provinces. Their work covers movies large and small, television shows, animated films and series, internet content, television shows across the dial, including children's programming, reality, game, awards, and talk shows. The next section is trade shows. As one of the newcomers of the entertainment world, the convention and trade show industry has been enlarging its footprint over the last 4 decades. In that time, IATSE stage and exhibition locals have been engaged in the installation and dismantling of local, national, and international conventions and trade shows. More recently, the International's Trade Show Department has formalized its relationship with multinational employers by initiating national agreements and standardizing conditions for workers in the industry. The next section is broadcast. The IATSE has represented workers in television broadcast for over 60 years. Initially, IA members in broadcast were employed primarily at local television stations. Beginning in 1998, the IATSE began to organize technicians engaged in telecasting live sports events over regional cable sports networks. Today, the broadcast department consists of numerous local unions that represent television station employees, locals that specialize in live sports broadcasting, and thousands of members working in broadcast from stage, studio mechanics, wardrobe and makeup artists, and hairstylist local unions. Broadcast technicians include technical directors, audio technicians, camera operators, video technicians, capture playback operators, editors, graphics artists, and utility technicians. That's really neat. I didn't realize all of those were included in that. The next one is communications. The communications department enhances and supports the IATSE by maintaining the IATSE's website, social media channels, email program, and coordinating with other departments and locals to disseminate information. Established in 2011, the Communications Department has set up an informal network of communication amongst locals and between locals and international. The Communications Department also creates educational materials to assist local unions and IATSE staff with modern communications methods and platforms. And I'll be right back. I need some more water, so hold on just a moment. Okay, the last section is education and training. It says the Education and Training Department facilitates and supports a culture of ongoing learning within the IATSE, equally dedicated to leadership skills for union officers and craft skills and safety training for workers. The department sponsors and promotes union skills courses and workshops. Hold on, let me adjust my phone for a second. It says it also works closely with the IATSE Training Trust Fund, ETCP, Infocom, USITT, and others in order to help workers keep abreast of new technologies, equipment, and styles of work. Additionally, the department operates outreach programs to high school and college students. The department was officially established in 2012 following the founding of the Labor Education Assistance Program, also known as LEAP, in 2009. LEAP provides reimbursement money to officers of local unions who enroll in qualifying labor studies programs. Okay, so that is it for this one. We went a little over an hour, but that's okay because this was really important and really intricate on this one. So again, this one was over the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees. And the next one that we're going to take a look at for next time will be the Sheet Metal Workers International Association. And that one was founded in 1888. Again, an old one. Those are really good and really fascinating because they usually have a very much a unique and kind of a prosperous history. And I don't always mean in terms of monies, but it's just that they have so much there to learn from, so to speak. So until next time, I pray that you're happy, healthy, and whole, and that you have a wonderful week and a happy new year. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.